Thank you guys for coming. You guys can hear me all right?
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So I'm not sure if any of you have seen my tank build, but if you have, I do apologize. It's going to be a lot of redundancy. I'm not going to go into the whole timeline of everything, but little fun thing to note here is I actually bought this tank online as a 60 cube. Somebody was selling it really, really cheap. And so when I was buying gear for it in the beginning, I didn't even measure it. I just took it like at face value and thought it was a 60 cube. So there's a lot of gear on this tank that is definitely oversized for a little 40 cube, but I'll get into that in a bit. So I'm thinking I'll go over gear and then we can get into kind of what's in the tank afterwards, if that works for everybody.
Are you okay to just tell us a wee bit about you first and what got you started?
Yeah. Well, for sure. So I actually started keeping freshwater tanks. I had a little beta tank, which I quickly converted into a 10-gallon community tank. This is back in 2015, 2016-ish. And then immediately within the year of moving out, upgraded that to like a 35. I've kept freshwater fish ever since. I studied zoology at the University of Guelph for my undergrad, so I love animals. It's kind of my entire life. Like right now, I work 2 jobs. I work at the Humane Society, it's like a shelter, and PetSmart. So literally between the saltwater tank, the Discord, and work, I'm going back to school in the fall for a vet tech. So it'll be animals all the time, every day, which is awesome. I'm happy about that. So this tank is actually coming up on 1 year. It all started with, I went to a coral shop with a buddy of mine, and I thought every Euphilia in there was an anemone, and he was explaining to me, no, that's a torch coral, that's a hammer coral, this and that. And I remember being just like a deer in the headlights, so overwhelmed with all of the coral ID that I immediately just went home and dove headfirst into all of it. So I did research for a while, and then I bought this guy back in November of 21. And then for the next 10 months, proceeded to buy gear, just kind of piecing it all together on a budget, right? Because I was living alone and working. So it was just do some research. Hey, what kind of return pump do I want? What kind of this, right? And in August of 22, September 1st, basically, of 22, I started my cycle and didn't add clownfish until about last November. So this has been a huge learning curve, but it's been awesome. Dry rock, dry sand. Is that, you have any questions about background?
No, go ahead.
Okay. So in terms of gear, right on the top, obviously, got an AI Hydra 52. I bought that one used. It was a really good deal. Again, thinking I'm lighting a 60-gallon cube, but I've got it mounted at like 10 or 11 inches off the water, and it's running at like 30% capacity because it's overkill. But I would like it for kind of not really casting a lot of shadows. I mean, obviously with my scape, there is some hard shadowing, but tried to offset that with the height. Powerhead, which I sent the link in Discord, it's like a QPS 9. It's like really nothing fancy, but way overkill for the tank. As I was complaining about not having any room for mushrooms or anything like that, but SPS are great, so I'm not complaining. That's pretty much it for in the display, but I'll get into the guts of it. So underneath, I have my sump. I hard plumbed all of this myself, Schedule 80 fittings and Schedule 40 pipe. If I'm shaking too much, guys, just let me know, okay?
No,
you're doing
you're
great.
absolutely fine.
Okay. So I did the whole BRS thing where it's far too many unions, and I was thinking, oh, I'm going to take my pipes apart and maintenance it and this and that, and I'll tell you, I've probably taken them out like once this year and gave them a good scrub and put them all back in. It's more of a pain in the ass trying to put everything back together with all the unions, but I like it. It looks pretty, so there's that. Um, so I've got everything running into this 225 micron filter sock by Red Sea. I swap them out. They're mesh, so really easy to clean, and it's honestly just there to protect my return pump. I'm not too concerned about it doing a lot of mechanical filtration. Um, Next to it here, I've got my Bubble Magus. It's a C3.5. It's the biggest skimmer that I could fit in that little compartment there. It's on its lowest setting. Again, I'm really not worried about nutrient export on this tank. It's running at about 1 ppm, and it's solid there. But again, I'm not trying to do anything crazy with filtration. So my first piece of oversized gear, which I'll talk about other than my light, is this heater. So it's a titanium, like a BRS heater, basically. But that guy is a 300-watt heater, and I could probably get away with like a single 100-watt or maybe two 100 watts to have as backup. I'm not going to throw it out. I already bought it, so I was like, whatever, I'll keep it. And then I've got this little refugium going, the BTA in it. I try to keep a bubble tip anemone in my display tank, and they basically just got beat up for 6 months. Over top of it is just like a cheap Amazon light here. I've been just chucking Trocus snails down here from my display because they keep reproducing in my display, but there's more algae down here than there is in 40 gallons of water up above. My next oversized piece of equipment is my Core 20 return. I bought this thinking I want something super high quality for my return pump, and I want it to be future proof. And I always thought I'd go towards like an Apex one day. So that's why I bought that. And then lastly, I have.
That is a
Pardon?
huge fucking pump.
Yeah, it's so ridiculous. Like it's on its second lowest setting. It is like so overkill. And you know what?
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, I'm not mad about it. It fits in the compartment, and that I've got that Union, which is a converter. So it's actually, I think it's like a 3/4 inch output on the actual pump, and then it's converting it to a 1.5 inch.
Yeah,
and then I have a bushing.
Is that the one that came in the box?
Yeah. So this guy came in the box, but I had to throw a bushing in it because it's all 1 inch pipe. So that was fun. It's a Union into a bushing into a Street 90. But again, like I like it. It works for what I need it. And hopefully when I upgrade down the road, I'll be able to use it, assuming it doesn't blow up for some reason. But It sounds like the power source is actually the weak link on those. So
yeah, it's most people would say, "Oh, you should be running 45s. The 90s are too restrictive." But a Core 20 in that fucking tank, I don't think you need to worry about constriction.
Yeah. Well, honestly, I bought a Core 15, and I started opening the box, and I go, "Where's the power adapter?" And I Google it, and it's like, "Oh, you need an Apex, idiot." So I end up calling the guy. I was like, "Man, I screwed up. I bought the Core 15," and he goes, "No problem. Pay the $50 difference, get the 20," and that was that. So
I did exactly the same thing. I bought the Core 15 thinking it was a lower rated pump.
Right. And then it's like, oh, but you got to spend $1,000 on an Apex actually.
Yep. Or a one link.
Yeah. The only thing down here really is I have this nano oscillator by Tunzi or Tunes, depending on who you ask, and bag of carbon in the back. I think it's more of a feel good kind of thing. I think it helps with the smell and maybe some water clarity. I've got like 2 cups or 3 cups of carbon in there, and I just swap it out every month or two when I think about it. Really not trying to reinvent the wheel here. That's pretty much it. Like that light is on a built-in timer. I've got it set on a 9-hour photo period and it's running at about 50%. So I've been slowly increasing the light on the NEM because I want it to try and get away from the surface. As you can see, it's like literally on the surface of the water. So I've been trying to maybe increase light to try and get it to go lower in the water, but not that worried about it. So that's pretty much it for the sump, unless you guys have questions.
I do.
Yeah, yeah.
So, so you got your heater, which is just a titanium BRS heater,
Yep.
to run that through, and it's massive compared to the water volume. Do you
Yeah.
have Inkbird, or what do you have on it as redundancy?
I do have an Inkbird on it. Currently, it's
Is
the only thing running it, but I do have a backup one, and I've been just keeping an eye on it like every single day.
so is that one of the titanium BRS heaters that doesn't have its own thermostat built in?
That that's correct. Yeah, so it's actually
Yeah,
not redundant at all.
yeah. So I use the same thing. I use just the Finex titanium heater, but I use the Finex titanium heater that comes with its own thermostat,
And
and
then have the
then
Inkbird as the redundant.
plug that
Yeah,
into the Inkbird for redundancy,
yeah.
because that
It's
thing
definitely
could nuke
something.
your tank.
Yeah, I know. It's honestly my biggest concern, especially even if just like one of the temperature probes get like come out of the water or something like that. Um, so literally 2, 3 times a day, I'm in here checking
Yeah,
temperature on, you know what I mean? Because I'm like anal
yeah.
about.
Could you
I
add
should
another
probably just
probe?
get off my wallet and buy a smaller heater, realistically.
Yeah, could you use another probe maybe in the display to help
Yeah, so I've got
alleviate that
two.
fear?
So I've got one probe down here in the return chamber, and then I've got one probe up in the overflow.
Nice.
I wanted to spread it out and get an average of the display and the sump. Um, so the only time I'm really concerned about it nuking is either the Inkbird dies, the probe comes out of the water, or if my return turns off for some reason, right? Because then it's getting a reading from up here and it thinks it's going to heat it when in fact the water's not going anywhere.
So since you have a controller, make the heater dependent on the return. Where
I
if the
don't have a
return,
controller. I don't have a
oh, I thought
controller.
you did. I thought you had an
No,
Apex. Sorry.
no, that's why I returned the Core 15. So I got the Core 20 because I don't have a controller. One day I will get an Apex, and I've been in the market for one, but it's just not right, really in the budget right now. But no, it's a good point, Jim, and I think it wouldn't hurt. Like the heaters are really not expensive, even just to downsize one that's not going to nuke the tank. I think is a great idea. And I've also got a second Inkbird that I could run as a redundancy if I really wanted to, like Inkbird into Inkbird. Um, what are your thoughts on that?
I've never thought of that. Like, I'm not a controller guy either, so these other two guys both have major Apex or Hydros like systems running, and I
Yeah.
don't have anything. So
Sorry, did
that's
somebody
what.
else ask the question? I can't even see who's in here right now.
Yeah, that was Pot.
Oh,
So
So
Russell,
sorry.
I run a Aheim, was it a Jaeger heater
Yep.
with the built-in thermostat on it, and then that goes to my hydros. Um, and then yeah, I have it built the programming where it's off if the return pumps off, it shuts off in different modes, all
Right.
that good stuff.
Right.
And worst case, if it's somehow stuck on, I went with a smaller heater. Between the pumps, the UV, the lights, all the other
Yeah.
stuff, I think without a heater, my tank would still be like low 70s where stuff would be fine. So I'm not
Yeah,
worried
that's
about
like
the tank getting too cold. So if this one
that's
sticks
actually a
on,
really
I'm
good
gonna
point.
cook it.
Like even at
yeah,
night, the lowest my room temp gets is like 72. It's not really getting that cold unless I lose power, but then I won't have heaters anyway. So yeah. Do you recommend the built-in thermostat? And then do you have that thermostat on a wider setting than your hydros?
Yeah, I've always liked heaters with the built-in thermostat just because it's what I'm used to. But yeah, I might have it set at like 80 and then the hydros at 78.
Yeah.
So the hydros is doing the actual controlling, shutting it on and
Yeah.
off. But if somehow the hydros lets it run away, the thermostat and the heater should stop itself. But
No,
shit
that's a really
happens.
good idea.
So I'm sure there's been plenty of people who've had that same approach, and then the controller and the heater screwed them. So.
Yeah.
No, that's
So I'm a little different where I have two 500-watt heaters, and one is a primary and the other is just a backup, and they both run with the thermostat. So I run my primary heater at 78 degrees. So it'll go and I run it off of the thermostat on the heater. And it'll go like 78.5 to 77. That's kind of like the range it runs in. And then I have my Inkbird turn off at 80 and send me an alert. So if the heater starts to run, it'll be turned off by the Inkbird, and the Inkbird will send me an alert. And then I have my low temperature on my Inkbird set at 76. And I have my backup heater set to run at 76. So if it drops out, I get an alert. If it goes to a low end temp, my backup heater will kick on and I'll know my primary heater is shot.
So Jim, you're relying on the like controller within the actual heater to do most of the work then?
Yeah.
Okay. And how are you like having to replace that annually or biannually? Like
I have replaced probably over 3 years a heater twice. So yeah, about annually.
I've never replaced a heater out of failure. It's always just been, well, it's been 2-3 years and it hasn't broken yet, but everyone says you're supposed to replace them, so I guess I will before I get bit.
Yeah.
See, I don't do that. I just let it run till it breaks because I have the backup, and once it stops functioning or something's wrong, then it's like, yeah, just move my backup to my primary and buy a new backup.
Yeah, see, and I just put the old primary in like the mixing station or in the fish closet as the spare. And then the new one goes in the sump.
Huh. Well, definitely going to downsize the heater because, like you said, Russell, it's a good idea to not have a heater that'll nuke your tank. And not to mention, like, my room temp is really mild. So even if it were to fail completely, it would still be within a range that I'm comfortable with, really.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm in South Carolina, so overheating is a way more common occurrence than freezing. So
yeah,
different. That probably shapes my perspective compared to you guys who live in cooler climates. Who, if I lose power in the summer, the people and the animals are going to be really uncomfortable. But if I lose power in the winter, nobody cares. It's fine.
Right. Yeah, there's only
how. Sorry, go on.
Sorry, go ahead. No, you're good.
You're the host. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say there's literally like maybe 4 months out of the year where that would be the case, where no one would be bothered because it's either really hot here or really cold here. It doesn't seem to have a long, mild period.
And you're in Windsor?
Yeah.
Okay, I lived in the Metro Detroit area through elementary school.
Yep.
All right, Jordan, I would say you've put a year into this tank. For $40, you can get a 150-watt Finex heater with a temp on it and have redundancy. Either you use the Inkbird or at least have that redundancy. Because nuking a tank is, I mean, when you listen to people talk, it's one of the easiest things that happens bad.
Yeah, temperature control fails fast.
Yeah, been there, lost everything.
Well, I might just fuck around and go out later today and get one, honestly.
That's really cool that
Hey,
those
let's keep
inverts have
spending his
the
money. What else? What else we got?
I've had Apex. I've had the two different kinds of digital aquatics, like the old whatever those things were. The ones
Reef
below.
Keeper.
Oh, yeah. Whatever the first version was, like the DA2, and then whatever the Elite was. I've had the old
Yeah.
Apex, the newer Apex, GHL P4, and then the Hydros X4, and Hydros is by far my favorite.
Techie.
So with
I take
that
it.
little light down there in that fuse,
Yep.
is that algae in the front, or are those just rocks? Right, those are just rocks. You're not growing any.
So this is all just rock, all along the
Yeah.
left side. But there is a shit ton of bryopsis, bubble algae, hair algae in general.
What is that? An acid wash, bubble tip anemone?
It's supposed to just be like a RBTA rose.
Gotcha. Looks good.
Yeah. I do have a cabinet that I can go through when you guys are ready, if you want.
Yeah, what kind of tank is it, Jordan?
Pardon?
What tank is it?
So this is a Aqualantis aquarium. It's like some no-name brand that I don't know, but I had to look it up, and they still make tanks, so it's not horrible. Okay. Sorry guys, I just need to pause this for 2 seconds. My girlfriend keeps calling me.
Uh-oh.
Crisis averted.
Glad to hear it. Still got enough money left over for a new heater?
Yeah, we're good. So, I guess you guys want to see where the mayonnaise is made. So this is my gear cabinet. I run all my cables, all the controllers through behind here. Got an auto top off mayonnaise because that's how it's done. No, obviously it's RO water, but yeah, I keep like my food test kits, refractometer, all the gears coming through a hole that I drilled in the back of the cabinet. It's my little Alpha Reef reservoir there. It lasts like just shy of a month in case the dosing pump decides to go AWOL and just dump everything in the tank. I just wanted a small reservoir, and then I'll like flush the lines out with RO water when I'm adding a new batch, basically. So yeah, it's power head, return pump, heater controller, and then my 5-gallon bucket. Like I was telling Jim in the Discord, I've got other buckets, but this makes me laugh. So we've got a mayo bucket.
You were saying that it was a total disaster and a mess, and that is so organized.
I had all my cables sitting beside the tank at one point, and I was just like, this is a fire hazard. So I ended up getting off my wallet and buying this cabinet. And the goal was to have like an automatic drip loop. So everything comes down from the tank and then comes back up to the power. So there's no water going into my outlets.
It looks good.
Thanks. Any questions, anybody, for this one? I mean, it's pretty straightforward. It's a gear cabinet.
That is
Yeah,
the
I've got a
smallest
question.
dosing container I've ever seen.
Now, can you get mayo in like a 55-gallon drum, or is it that about the max?
Oh man, I have no idea.
Only in
like
Canada.
Yeah, honestly, somebody else had a bucket of it in their build thread, but so no, I was given these buckets empty. I assume they're for a restaurant or, you know, guys who eat mayo straight out of a bucket.
So I just got in. I'm so late. I'm sorry. I've only seen the cabinet so far.
Oh, cool. I can give you a quick tour again if you want. But
Yeah, it's all recorded as well. We haven't done the inside of the
true.
tank yet.
Yeah, yeah. You guys want to get into the fish and stuff?
Yeah, let's see what you got in there.
So fish list is really short. So it's my 2 clowns. I've got the Springer Eye Damsel. I've got a tail spot blenny, and that dragonette, which has been featured several times on the Discord. That's it for fish. I've thought about adding more fish, but I would only do it if I need more nitrates. Everyone's super peaceful in here, so just don't want to disturb the forest or anything. Inverts, other than coral, of course, I have a coral banded shrimp, which basically just hangs out back here and will come out at night and forage on algae and stuff. It's honestly a great shrimp. I'm happy with it. I have a tuxedo urchin, or at least I did. I haven't. Oh, there he is. Just chilling under there.
It's interesting hearing some people say they've heard coral banded shrimp will eat fish. And the one I have, it is nowhere near fast enough to catch a fish. Like, a fish can be right in its face, and when it swipes at it, it's like it's in slow motion compared to the fish.
Yeah. And not only is it slow, but the demeanor of this shrimp, it's like timid almost.
Yeah, if a fish gets in its face, mine usually scatters.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
they will clean the fish. They'll hop on a fish and clean them, pick off of them.
They
Yeah,
crawl
my fish
all
are not
over the
interested.
coral.
Other than that, 4 hermit crabs, all different types. I've got Trocus snails, Astrea snails, turbo snails, Necarius snails, and then everything else is pretty much a hitchhiker other than the coral. Like I said,
Dude,
the
this
Trocus
is
snails.
sweet.
Thank you.
I love this scape. I think it's absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Really?
I
So
find tanks that size so difficult to find a scape I'm happy with, because it's so limited for, you can't have 2 bommies or 3 bommies in a tank that small, but I love it.
Thank you. I always say I would redo it if I could, but for my first one, I'm really happy with it. It just, when I look at it, I see the individual rocks. You still have that feel of like a pile of rocks in your tank, which I find is kind of, juvenile in terms of building escape, but I do like it functionally. It's got a lot of room for coral. It's got a lot of hiding spots for fish. And it takes up the tank, right? Like
They have nice color, the rocks themselves.
Thanks. They used to be white like this. And now they're every shade of green and purple and white, I guess, still, wherever the urchin has been. So I'll just go along the side here. This is like my low flow side. So I've got my Euphilia. I bought this as a Favia. It's apparently a Goniastria. I would not know the difference. New plate frag here for Russell. Cheers, Russell. My little Acan garden. I've got a mini carpet nem, some Cyphastria. And then it goes into like all sticks up top. So bird's nest, Setosa, Pdam, and then all acros on this side in the middle here. So, it's kind of hard to see. Like these 4 here. I've got some coral that are kind of not doing so great. Like, obviously, everyone loves to talk about the ones that grow, but like for example, these zoas, I can't keep them happy. They either retract completely and get covered in cyano, or they do kind of this where it's like they look like they're going to come out and they just don't. And I'm okay with that. I'm not really, like, I got them for free from somebody, so
I
And
have
I'm not
never
really...
kept a zoa alive in my entire time in reef keeping.
Well, that makes me feel better. Like this chalice, for example, has been here for a while. It doesn't really do much, but it's not dying. It'll eat, so I just leave it alone. I've got a lot of frags in here that I'm going to be giving away to some friends, like this little piece of Monochora setosa, this little green P-dam. So there's a lot of things that'll come out of this tank that'll eventually kind of clean up the sand bed and stuff, but
the green acro just to the right at the front there, is that got blue on it as well?
this guy.
Yeah.
So this is I
Is
don't
that
know
a Garf?
I don't know the actual like hobby name. It was given to me as a tricolor Velita, but
Yeah,
it looks kind of like bonsai.
Yeah. It's really nice.
It's thanks. It's actually like all these spikes on the left are new, so they've just kind of it's been growing in girth and not in length, but not mad about it. It's gonna have a bunch of branches sprout soon, so
That setosa is growing nice.
thank you. I have some before pictures, and it's honestly it used to just be the center stick, so all these fans are new.
Mine doesn't do that. Mine can't get mine.
I just rotated it.
You are doing something that I've never seen one so evenly branched.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Mine's almost an encruster.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why, honestly. Like it used to be the other way. I just rotated it because the frog spawn was getting really close to it, so I wanted to kind of like it used to hang right over top, and the fan that you're seeing in shadow here used to face the top of the tank. But yeah, it was almost like flat, like it was plating out after having a stem. And then I've got this frag of it, which is kind of doing a mix of both. Like it's branching and kind of growing flat. So we'll see what happens with that one. But that one will go probably in October to my buddy. So in terms of like algae and nuisance, like pests, my biggest demise are currently bubble algae and vermitid snails. Vermitids are just a constant, break them when you can. And then every week when I do water changes, I'm in there just scraping bubble algae and trying to sipe it out. But it is what it is. Like it's a reef tank, it's going to have algae. I'm not too pressed about it.
What's your water change regime, if at all?
Yeah, so I do weekly water changes. I'll do a 5-gallon bucket, which on this tank runs about, it's north of 10%, something like 13%. I don't know the exact volume of this tank, but I think it's about 47 gallons between the display and the sump, excluding the rock and all of it, based on like some water calculations that I did way back like a year ago. But so yeah, it's like 10+% weekly. And then
so what do you got on the left hand side?
The left hand
really
side?
Got a good look at that, yeah.
Yeah. So starting from the top, this is my Starburst Monty. I bought it as a red Monty cap, but it has yellow polyps, so it's very much not a red. You can't really tell with the light like that. It's the same piece in the back there, if you can see it.
Yeah.
It's got like yellow polyps. I've got photos I can definitely post after. There's a purple Monty cap right beside it. And then some more bird's nest because it just grows like a weed. This guy is a flaming phoenix Monty, which is currently being shaded by bird's nest. So I don't think it's really going to grow much until I do something about it. This is a stylo Coniella or Ciniella, depending on who you ask. That was my first SPS. It encrusted really fast and then kind of slowed right down. So I'm not really bothered about it if it doesn't keep growing. The orange on the right is it was sold to me as a jack-o'-lantern lepto. And then green PDAM, which I wouldn't have got had I known it was a green PDAM, but the pictures were shown to me as a purple PDAM. And I was like, yeah, sure. It was like a trade, so I didn't pay anything for it, but I got it in the tank and it immediately turned green. And I'm like, great, more green coral. Everything is green.
Green coral looks cool though. In blue lights, it glows. It's got a little bit of that fluorescence. I thought the same thing about my tank, that I have too much green. I'm like, no, there's a reason there's so much green. It looks cool. Pop.
Yeah.
It's neat.
Again, I'm not complaining about it, but I'm always a little critical of myself with color matching and things like that. I'm like, oh, I should have got a yellow coral or something cool, and instead I've got half of my coral are green and the other half are orange. Obviously, you guys have seen this 100 times. It's my fungia. It was probably one of the first coral I got, and it just keeps doing awesome. I feed it like a pig, and I love that thing. It's awesome.
That's not a helio?
It was sold to me as a Joker's pinwheel fungia. I have no idea if it's a helio or what. I know that the people who bought the other ones, tentacles, don't do that. But yeah, there's some like 2-inch tentacles on it, which is insane.
Damn, that's sweet.
Thank you. It's probably my favorite coral. Some friends of mine have joked about fragging it, and I'm like, over my dead body will I be fragging this plate.
The rim around it, is that flesh flap or skeleton the way it's grown?
It's this is all
I
like
can see it.
tissue. Yeah. So it's actually flow lifting this side up.
Okay, I see it now. Juicy.
Yeah.
It's happy in there.
Too bad you're not in the States. We could work out some kind of plate swap.
Yeah, I know, right? I was like, damn it, Russell. And then this chalice, which I just recently showed on my build thread, it is one of my earlier pieces as well, and it's liking it there. Starting to put out sweepers though, like 1 to 2 inch sweepers. So that's why it's kind of in its own little space.
You're just going to let it cover that corner? It looks like it's about to take off. Once the chalice gets happy, they grow fast.
Yeah, I'm going to let it do its thing there unless it starts becoming a problem for the things on this rock, in which case I might consider fragging it back. But what's crazy about where I live is unless you know somebody who wants frags, good luck. Like you'll wait 3-4 months, and by then the frags need fragging. So that is pretty much it for me. But obviously, if you guys have questions about anything in the tank, any gear, I'm all ears.
So I'm interested in that. And you were talking about in the Discord the other day about flow and how to make some of those other corals happy that don't like flow, LPS corals that want less flow.
Yep.
So your pump, how is that angled and what's the water? I can't really tell because it's a box.
For sure.
And you basically got a pump on the side.
So it's pointing pretty much over this rock crest here. Yeah. And it does a wrap around the tank over the top. So the lowest flow portion is what's at the end of the circle. Which is why I have all of my, like I've got like a Rhodactis there, which seems to be doing okay. The Nem loves like no flow. There's a little Yuma in here, which you can't see because it is absolutely shriveled into nothing. This happens to be also where I get the most cyano and all of the other things that come with low flow. But
it's kind of a dead spot.
Yeah, it is a dead spot, but I take advantage of it by putting the coral here that actually appreciate less
Yeah.
flow. So it's give and take. Like I've thought about either putting another return or another power head here and having it blow the opposite way to get some turbulence, but then I lose all of this, right? And
Yeah.
then I could also put one facing it immediately opposite to it and have them really just butt heads all day. But again, it's like I'm at 15% power on that power head right now. It's and everything like I've
And
been
it's
turning it up
yeah,
incrementally for the SPS, but
And so
but
that
it's still
lower flow.
blasting off the
Go ahead,
pardon?
Jim.
it's still blasting off the left-hand side so hard that it's moving the coral on the bottom left. Like
Yeah,
that's getting good flow down there just off of a reflection off that glass up top. So that
exactly.
thing's really hammering that side of the glass.
Yeah. And it's not even on a stream, it's on a pulse. And
Yeah.
it looks like
I don't know what else you could do.
I like you said, I need a bigger tank. Like Zach was saying, he's got a 4 foot tank and he's got no issues finding low spots of flow. And I'm like, it makes sense because this tank is just over 2 feet wide.
Yeah.
Have you put the corals in that low flow section anywhere else and they looked unhappy? Or are you just presuming they want the lowest flow you can give them?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So I guess if we want to get specific with the individual coral, I had these acans. Sorry, my hand's in the way. I had these acans where the zoanthids are, and I found that with the sand getting moved a lot, they were just falling inward. So I would have to figure out a new mounting situation with this whole bare bottom to actually put them anywhere else because I don't really have any other sand bed other than this side. Um, I've thought about putting things like back here, but we're really starting to think about like, am I even going to be looking back there at coral? And to answer your question, no, these guys looked really happy in the middle. This guy didn't, but it's looking happier here, so I'm leaving it. The Rhodactis, I have moved every which way. It was not happy anywhere else. I've left it there because it's actually opened up and eating. Um, the carpet nem sits where the carpet nem wants. It blows around my tank like a tumbleweed until it found that spot, and I don't want to touch it because I don't want it to dislodge from that rock. So I guess the only other one are these two guys. My plate coral was kind of getting battered here. I had it right here, and with the water ripping around, it looked like it was retracted. And with it being a brand new frag to me, I was really concerned about it. I wanted to come in the tank and I wanted to start growing, so I threw it in lower flow, and it definitely is more open. Like the whole edge that's facing us is new tissue. So I'm happy with it. I don't want to touch it. And then this guy, the Goniastria, I know it could tolerate higher flow, but again, it's kind of like the acans. I need a better mounting option than just having them on frag plugs because I don't have a sand bed anywhere else that could take that.
You could try using like those 3-inch frag tiles if you wanted.
Yeah, something like these, right?
Yeah, just circle or some
Or the
people use
square.
travertine tile, yeah, or the little squares. But awesome that you
Yeah.
actually played around figuring out where stuff was happy instead of
Yeah,
just
the
saying, "Oh, I read
zoanthids.
that."
Sorry.
No, it's great that you actually played around with it instead of just saying, "Oh, I read online that they want low flow, so that's the only place they've been."
Got you. Yeah. Even like the Cyphastria in the back here. I don't know if I played much around with the meteor shower, but this Skittle Bomb sat on the other side of this rockscape in high flow, like lower light, and it was retracted for at least a couple months. And I was like, okay, I need to do something about this. I put it back there. It was happy. And then mindlessly, I just shoved the meteor shower one right beside it because I said, well, if one Cyphastria is happy, the other one will be too. But
That's funny. I did the same thing with two Cyphastria of mine. I just shoved them in the back corner like that, right next to the overflow. And then
yeah.
same thing with, trumpet corals.
Oh, cool.
I know other people say they can tolerate medium to high flow, and I don't know. They just couldn't for me. So they're right next to the overflow, and they're actually happy there.
Yeah. Well, and that makes me wonder, like, what you said, medium to high? Like they tolerate medium to high flow?
I think that's what some people said. I know, again, recently on the beef, I saw somebody recommend those in an SPS tank for, putting it high flow area.
Mine are in medium flow, and they grow like weeds.
My tank is absolutely ripping, and I had a huge patch at the front, which I've recently just lasered off because it was starting to attack my acans, but it did absolutely fine in that flow. Really high flow.
Interesting. I also think like the term medium flow is so subjective to the actual tank. Like my medium flow might be a guy with the softies tank's high flow and so on, right? It's like we don't have flow meters to detect like to say high, medium, low flow is it's baloney, like
Yeah. Well, and some of these power heads are really narrow beams where it looks like there's a ton of flow because it's splashing around a lot of water, but it's like a garden hose. You can use a little bit of like calcium carbonate and drop that in the water to visualize your flow, like to actually see how it swirls around stuff and around the rocks. So I do that when I'm cleaning stuff, and I always thought it was kind of cool how you can see the flow patterns.
I do that with my Reefroids.
Just a teaspoon of mayonnaise will do the same.
Yeah. Well, what do I do with 5 gallons of it, Russ? Or Ron?
You fucking have a bath in it. Get 2 giant sheets of bread and call yourself a sandwich.
Oh, man. Trying to think if there's anything else that I could share. I mean, I'm starting to get Coraline everywhere. Like, obviously, the power head is black. You guys know what this stuff is?
It's like green Coraline.
Yeah, it looks just like a different species of Coraline.
Okay, I was like, it's growing just like Coraline, but it is like a green-brown tinge. So
I get that, but the pink overtakes it.
Okay.
So,
yeah, I mean, I've got some pink coming in, and obviously these 2 pancake nipples on the back.
Yeah, that's weird. They're growing like that.
Nice and natural, though. They're lopsided. So, I saw test kits. So you obviously test. What do you test for?
Yeah, so I'll be quite honest with you guys. I tested a lot in the beginning to kind of get a feel of the tank, get a feel of how nutrients were moving, how my alkalinity consumption was, things like that. And I was also just paranoid that I was just going to kill everything, which is hilarious because I have a 300-watt heater, but we'll move on. I have pH, nitrate, phosphate, and then the big 3. So alkalinity, calcium, magnesium. And then I have my refractometer for salinity. I also have ammonia and nitrite, which was just in the beginning. Nowadays, I pretty much only test ALK because that's all I really give a shit about.
And what do you run it at?
So ALK, last time I tested was 8.3 roughly. Anywhere between 8 and 9, I like to be. But
how often do you test?
So I tested 5 days ago and then 4 days before that. So every 4 or 5 days, because I'm running the Alpha Reef, it's kind of a lagged response. I know I could test every day and it would tell me where I was kind of 2 days ago, but um, it hasn't really been moving. Like I kind of set it and forget it on the Alpha Reef. So I test it once a week, twice a week at most, and just make sure that nothing's crazy out of whack.
And with that little Alpha Reef container you have,
Yeah.
how quick do you go through that?
So it's between 20 and 30 days. I'm only dosing, I think, 12 mils a day right now. So that little container is doing just fine until I have to actually up my numbers. I was consuming like 0.3, 0.4 DKH per day, but with how small the tank is, I don't need a whole lot of that Alpha Reef to actually upkeep that.
Yeah, when I started using Alpha Reef, I ended up diluting it with more water just so that the dosing was reasonable instead of, just tiny amounts.
Yeah, I'm dosing, I think it's like between 0.5 and 0.6 mils 22 times a day right now. So it's like just like a little few drops and then it's done. Like,
What doser do you use?
it's a Kamoer F1. It was like really inexpensive and had all the features that I was looking for. And only one dosing head, which was the main thing. Everything else was like, oh, get 4 dosing heads. I'm like, I'm dosing Alpha Reef. I know it's future proof, but when I get there, I'll buy a new doser. Like
What are the other two additives you've got up the top right there?
Sorry?
What are the other two additives you've got on top of the
Oh,
cabinet?
yeah. So this is the CCAM Reef Builder and Magnesium. These were given to me by somebody who like also gave me a bunch of coral. He was getting out of the hobby, and I used those in the beginning to maintain alkalinity. I think I used magnesium one time and realized it was kind of a waste of time. But that was what I was using before Alpha Reef, and I think if anything ever really gets too low, I can offset. Like I can just do a one-time dose of like Reef Builder for alk. Like I said,
So
I'm
I
not.
think I think
Sorry, go ahead.
you're at a point where things are going to start like building. Your corals are going to start growing like weeds.
Yep.
Your consumption is going to start taking off.
Yeah. So you think I
But it's
should
a
test?
perfect size tank for Alpha Reef. Like,
Yeah.
What salt do you use, Jordan?
Reef crystals.
What was the fucking giggle for?
yeah, I
I
use
was
reef
laughing
crystals.
because we were talking
Zach
about it with
uses
Zach, and he just switched to Instant Oceans, and we had a discussion about what Jason Fox uses, and he was like, "Yeah, Jason Fox uses Instant Oceans," and I was like,
Yeah, I was wrong.
"That's
Well,
why
I
I
did
give
just see one on YouTube today, Worldwide Corals, and this guy interviewed him, and he's using a purple box. So I stand by. I stand by it.
I was just gonna say, like, they still sell it for a reason. It's people are buying it, people are successful with it. I'm sure. Um, Other than that, I have like a 100-gallon GPD RODI system that I bought. It's like the Barracuda Aqua something. Um, Not using tap water like some of the people.
And was that dry rock to start with?
Yep, all of it was dry rock, dry sand, and I seeded it with it was seed bacteria by forget the brand and some like ammonium chloride. I didn't even ghost feed it until I think like a week in. Um, Anybody else?
That's beautiful, man. Great job.
Thank you guys. I mean, it's definitely not, I'm sure, like your previous tank tours, but I'm happy with it.
It's better than the last one.
It looks great. You've got a good little system going. A
Thank
lot of
you.
times those smaller tanks are harder than the bigger tanks.
Heck yeah.
That's
I
definitely true. Oh, Jake says his mic's not working, and he's asking about your lighting.
Okay. Like he just wants me to go over it.
I think so.
Okay. So it's a Hydra 52 HD. Mounting height is about 10 or 11 inches. I run it from 8 until 8 with, I think it's about an hour, hour and a half ramp up, ramp down. And then it'll peak between like 11 and 1 p.m. And then it kind of comes down and sits at about 75% for the rest of the day. I run more whites in the morning. And then after 1 o'clock, it starts to drop off into more blues all the way through the evening. I'm curious, Jake, if you figured out how to set up Moonlight, because I know how to do it. I don't know what it should be like or like how to set it without really messing with things. So if you figure that out, message us.
I've got 3 of those exact. Excuse my automatic water changes have both just fired up. I've got 3 Hydra 52 HDs on the shop system, and one of them, and thankfully it's the one in the middle, does a kind of moonlight thing, even though I don't ask it every night. Totally random. Don't know how to control it. It's just got a fucking mind of its own.
That's hilarious.
I got those lights maybe about a year after I get into the hobby, and they have, other than that one doing a moonlight thing now, not skipped a beat. Brilliant lights.
Knock on wood. Yeah. I love it. I paid like 500 Canadian from some guy when the 64 HDs were selling for like $1,100 Canadian. And I was like, that's a no-brainer for me. And on this tank, like I said, it's overkill. It's like 39 watts, which is like 30% of its capacity.
It's given really good coverage though.
Yeah, that's what I love about it. Like even here, like there's no shadowing when you would think there would be. Oh, we did a good hour.
It's funny how easy it is to talk about even the simplest of setups.
Yeah.
I think Scotty in Australia is going to do a proper full-blown tour of his tank again for us soon, because the last time he ended up with a migraine.
Oh, that sucks.
How long has this tank been running, Jordan?
So it's coming up on 1 year of adding water with dry rock, dry sand next week.
That's awesome. You got a really good foundation. Most people's tanks are a clusterfuck a year into using dry rock.
Yeah, I get my hands wet every week. I'm in there with a toothbrush, removing it the best I can. Even like I'll take bone cutters to like bubble algae that I get in these cracks and things like that, just to keep it from getting too out of hand. And then the herbivores take care of the rest. It's funny though, like I can get in there and go crazy on some hair algae, and then it won't come back, but then something else comes back, and it's just kind of this gambit of algae that have been coming through the tank, where it started off with hair algae and cyano, and then it's bryopsis, and now it's bubble algae, and I assume there's going to be something else after bubble algae, and I just have to wait and see what it is.
After that comes greatness.
Hopefully just coralline, right? But I do think, I don't know, like it's all at war with itself, right? Like benthic succession, like Rich talks about. In, like I said, you can see everything that I ever had in this tank down here, which you would not see in the display if you looked hard enough. Like, oh, you know what? I did this whole thing with my return on, and I meant to turn it off so you guys didn't hear water, but here we are. I'm glad I didn't leave it off for an hour.
No,
What
the sound's been perfect.
Sorry?
No,
What light is that in the sump? Is that half of a tuned refugium light?
No, no. So this is
Clip on?
it's I don't even know what the brand is. It was like Neo something, Neo Light. It was $20 on Amazon, and it's got like all different kinds of settings for, I think it's like 6 different power settings and over a dozen different color combinations. So this is running a white and blue. It was just like, hey, I want a cheap light to light this fuge, and it seems to be doing the trick. So I'm not mad about it.
Cool. You gonna put anything else down there animal wise?
So I did mention I'm like chucking trochus snails in there because of the algae from the display tank, because they've been populating it. But I've thought about maybe doing a porcelain crab, like a porcelain anemone crab. It's really a small space, like it's not a lot of square footage, so I wouldn't be able to put fish in there or anything like that. Do you have any recommendations for like inverts or something?
Oh, just any kind of inverts. I doubt they ship to Canada, but one of my favorite things on my old tank was a refugium kit from IPSF, Indo-Pacific Sea Farms. And
Okay.
it was just neat watching all the little hermit crabs and snails and worms and just everything in there. I don't think I had enough volume for the refugium to do anything, but it was like its own little mini display down there. And, you know, it's so many cool critters end up living down there. You find yourself just watching the refugium for a while.
That's funny. Yeah, I definitely I'm interested in adding more things to it, but I don't want to sentence them to death. You know, I want them to kind of thrive down there. So I was thinking like an anemone crab. I could do a hermit crab down there with the amount of algae that's going. More snails. I'm not, if it gets really bad with algae, I'll do an urchin. Or even just take the one out of the display and throw it down there for a week. I don't know though. I don't like to touch this too much. Like if I take the urchin out, algae will come back, I'm sure, right? And it's like, just leave it alone. Add a new one to here. Maybe I'll get Zach to get a Boston urchin, and I'll go and pick it up 4 hours away.
Nice. Smuggle it across the border.
Yep, in my bum.
So, where else? How did you get into the hobby?
Yeah, so I did mention it in the beginning, but it's okay. I went to a coral shop with a buddy of mine who was in the hobby, and I saw all the Euphilia and the acans and stuff, and I thought all the Euphilia were anemones, and he had to explain to me, you know, nope, that's a torch, that's a hammer. And then I started asking, oh, what's that? What's that? And then I remember standing in the corner of the coral shop looking like a deer in the headlights, just like, I need to go home. I need to do research. And that's pretty much what I did. So I bought this guy on Kijiji because it was $500 for the tank, the sump, and the stand. And it was like, oh, that's a great deal. Go get it. Thinking it was a 60 cube. It's still a good deal, but it's a smaller tank. So that's kind of how it all started.
Very cool. And had you kept aquariums at all before this?
Yeah. So I started with a beta tank, and then quickly upgraded it to like a little 10-gallon community tank, which turned into a 35-gallon community tank, which I'm actually in the process of taking down, but it's evolved. It's this now.
now I've only heard of tanks that are 1 year old looking that good running crystals.
Thank you.
Honestly, thank you so much for
No.
being a good sport and joining in. And I really, I'm going to be really excited in about 12 months' time to do another tour and see how the tank is. Although 100% sure you'll have upgraded by then. So we'll wait and see.
We can only hope. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Jordan.